Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was born on November 30th, 1874 at Blenheim Palace, Oxfordshire, into an aristocratic family. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was a Conservative MP, and his mother, Jenny Jerome, was the daughter of an American businessman. Churchill and his brother Jack were largely raised by their nanny, Elizabeth Everest, to whom he was deeply attached. Educated at Harrow, Churchill trained for a military career and entered the Royal Military College, Sandhurst. Commissioned in 1895, he served as an army officer and war correspondent in Cuba, India, and Sudan. While in India, he undertook extensive self-education, developed political views, rejected religious belief, and began his writing career. He fought at the Battle of Omdurman, 1898, and later left the army, critical of British conduct in Sudan. In 1899, Churchill pursued politics and journalism in South Africa during the Second Boer War. Captured by Boer forces, he escaped dramatically, gaining international fame. He rejoined the army, supported generous treatment of the Boers, and returned to Britain a public figure. In 1900, aged 25, Churchill was elected Conservative MP for Oldham. In Parliament, he increasingly clashed with Conservative leadership, opposing high military spending, protectionism, and anti-immigration policies while aligning with liberal positions on free trade and reform. On May 31st, 1904, he formally left the Conservative Party and crossed the floor to join the Liberals. As a liberal, Churchill attacked government policy and gained a reputation as a radical under the influence of John Morley and David Lloyd George. After Conservative Prime Minister Arthur Balfour resigned in 1905, the Liberals won a landslide victory in the January 1906 election, and Churchill was elected MP for Manchester North West. Around this time, his biography of his father was published to positive reviews. Churchill became Under-Secretary of State for the Colonial Office, working under Lord Elgin. He helped draft a constitution for the Transvaal, oversaw government formation in the Orange River Colony, promoted reconciliation between Britons and Boers, and supported the gradual end of Chinese indentured labor. He also criticized European brutality toward Africans, particularly during the Bambatha Rebellion. In 1908, Asquith became Prime Minister and appointed Churchill President of the Board of Trade, making him one of the youngest cabinet ministers. After briefly losing his seat, Churchill returned to Parliament as MP for Dundee. He married Clementine Hosier in 1908, a stable partnership that strongly supported his career. At the Board of Trade, Churchill emerged as a leading social reformer alongside Lloyd George. He helped introduce key welfare measures, including an 8-hour day for miners, minimum wage regulation through trade boards, labor exchanges, and early plans for unemployment insurance. He strongly supported the 1909 People's Budget, attacking House of Lords obstruction and backing the Parliament Act 1911, which curtailed the Lords' power. As Home Secretary, 1910 to 1911, Churchill reformed prisons, reduced use of capital punishment, and improved conditions for prisoners. His handling of industrial unrest, Tonypandy riots, and women's suffrage protests was controversial, damaging his standing with both labor activists and suffragettes. He also faced criticism for his role during the siege of Sydney Street. In 1911, Churchill became First Lord of the Admiralty. Alarmed by German naval expansion, he pushed rapid modernization of the Royal Navy, expanded submarines and naval aviation, secured oil supplies, and prepared Britain for war. He supported Irish Home Rule while opposing partition, though tensions remained unresolved. When the First World War began in 1914, Churchill oversaw naval mobilization, blockaded Germany, and promoted new technologies such as tanks. He strongly backed the Dardanelles, Gallipoli campaign against Turkey, which failed disastrously. Blamed by many for the defeat, Churchill was removed from the Admiralty when a coalition government was formed in May 1915. In November 1915, Churchill resigned from the government but remained an MP. He returned to active military service on the Western Front, commanding the 6th Royal Scots Fusiliers as a temporary lieutenant colonel in early 1916, where he experienced heavy shelling and narrowly escaped death. In May 1916, he left active service and reverted to the rank of major. Back in Parliament, Churchill continued to speak on the war, advocating wider conscription, better protection for soldiers, and greater use of mechanized warfare. Though frustrated at being out of office and frequently blamed for the Gallipoli failure, the Dardanelles Commission later cleared him of personal responsibility. After Asquith's resignation in 1916, Lloyd George brought Churchill back into government. Appointed Minister of Munitions in July 1917, Churchill ended strikes, boosted arms production, and helped plan the final Allied offensive. He supported the 1918 Representation of the People Act and remained in office until the war ended. From 1919 to 1921, Churchill served as Secretary of State for War and Air. He oversaw army demobilization, opposed harsh treatment of Germany, and strongly resisted Bolshevism, supporting intervention in the Russian Civil War before later advocating a policy of containment. He backed tough measures during the Irish War of Independence and directed British policy in Iraq. As Secretary of State for the Colonies, 1921 to 1922, Churchill helped negotiate the Anglo-Irish Treaty, reorganized Middle Eastern mandates, supported Zionism in Palestine, and reduced imperial costs. Personal tragedy marked this period with the deaths of his mother and daughter Marigold. The 1922 Channok Crisis split the coalition government, leading to its collapse. In the subsequent general election, Churchill lost his Dundee seat, leaving him briefly without office or party, though he was awarded the Companion of Honor. After losing office in 1922, Churchill spent time in France writing and painting, beginning his war memoir The World Crisis. He unsuccessfully contested Leicester West in 1923 and strongly opposed the Labour government elected under Ramsay MacDonald, particularly its policy towards Soviet Russia. Breaking with the Liberals, Churchill declared that only the Conservatives could defeat socialism. In 1924, he stood unsuccessfully as an independent, then agreed to rejoin the Conservatives. Standing at Epping in the October 1924 election, he was elected and appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer by Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin. Appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer in 1924, Churchill rejoined the Conservative Party and pursued free market policies. In 1925, he controversially restored the gold standard at its pre-war value, a decision widely blamed for deflation and rising unemployment, especially in the coal industry. He presented 5 budgets, introducing measures such as lower pension ages, widows' pensions, tax cuts, reduced military spending, and higher taxes on luxury goods. During the 1926 general strike, Churchill edited the government newspaper British Gazette, later mediating between miners and employers and supporting a legal minimum wage. He supported Irish unity within the British Empire and, in 1927, visited Rome, praising Mussolini for opposing communism. After 1929, Churchill was out of office, struggling with depression but sustaining himself through writing, notably Marlborough, His Life and Times. He broke with the Conservatives over Indian self-government and spent the early 1930s warning against Nazi Germany, opposing appeasement, and criticizing Hitler's expansion. Though often isolated, his warnings gained credibility after Munich in 1938. At the outbreak of the Second World War in September 1939, Churchill returned as First Lord of the Admiralty. Following the failure in Norway, Neville Chamberlain resigned, and on May 10, 1940, Churchill became Prime Minister as Germany invaded Western Europe. As wartime leader, Churchill formed a coalition government, refused to negotiate peace, and inspired Britain through powerful speeches during Dunkirk, the Battle of Britain, and the Blitz. He strengthened ties with Roosevelt, secured U.S. aid through Lend-Lease, and later worked with both the United States and the Soviet Union as one of the Big Three. Britain endured major setbacks, including Singapore and the Bengal famine, but from late 1942 the war turned with victories at El Alamein, Stalingrad, and in North Africa. Churchill played a central role in Allied strategy, supported the invasion of Italy, and later backed D-Day in June 1944. He attended major wartime conferences, Tehran, Yalta, Potsdam, shaping the post-war world. Germany surrendered in May 1945, and Churchill led Britain to victory in Europe. Despite this, Churchill lost the July 1945 general election to Labour under Clement Attlee, as voters prioritized post-war social reform over wartime leadership. After 1945, Churchill remained conservative leader and leader of the opposition. In 1946, he delivered his famous Iron Curtain speech in the U.S., warning of Soviet expansion and calling for a close Anglo-American special relationship within the UN. He supported European cooperation but opposed Britain joining a federal Europe. The Conservatives returned to power in 1951, and Churchill became Prime Minister again, 1951 to 55. His second premiership focused mainly on foreign affairs, especially relations with the U.S., the Cold War, and managing imperial decline. His government oversaw troop withdrawals from Egypt and Sudan, while continuing counterinsurgency campaigns in Malaya and Kenya. Despite declining health and a major stroke in 1953, he remained in office until resigning in April 1955, succeeded by Anthony Eden. In retirement, Churchill remained an MP until 1964, received many honors, including a knighthood and honorary U.S. citizenship, and lived quietly at Chartwell despite failing health. He died on January 24, 1965, aged 90, and was given a state funeral. Widely commemorated worldwide, he is remembered as one of Britain's greatest leaders and was voted the greatest Briton in a 2002 BBC poll. If you found Churchill's story fascinating, be sure to check out our video on other influential leaders and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.